It was only a matter of time for the first report to come out that Sam Bradford wants out, but according to Jason Cole of the Bleacher Report, Sam Bradford is looking to cut ties with Philadelphia. He wants to go somewhere else with a team that is going to be invested in him long term. How surprised are you today, John?
Not surprised. We didn't even get to the 24-hour period. This is my biggest issue with the deal, and I wrote about it today on 973ESPN.com. And it's sort of like my criticisms over the many months of Sam Hinkie. What the Eagles, on paper, everything makes sense, but they failed to take the human element into this. And the fact that Sam Bradford's going to be upset, that's just the reality of it. And when you think about where he is in his career and the fact that when he signed the short-term deal, he should have already understood that the Eagles didn't think he was the future. It's easy to say that when you have an opportunity to prove them wrong, but when you take that opportunity away from them, all of a sudden human nature comes into it, and you have an unhappy camper.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I said that before. When I read Jason Cole's, this was a video of him, I'm reading the transcript where he says, Bradford is going to ask for a trade at some point in time or some way to get out of Philadelphia so he can move on with his career somewhere else with a team that is going to be invested in him long term. Well, he agreed to sign this contract, so he knew that potentially the Eagles weren't invested in him long term. But my question really would be, did he think they were going to draft a guy or at least give him a year or two to prove to them that he's the long-term guy? And that's where I guess he would be upset.
Yeah, and as I said, that part of it's human nature. I mean, if you think about it from a logical sense, you're talking about a guy who's already made $78 million for throwing 78 touchdowns, and he's been guaranteed 22 more million. So if there's anybody who doesn't have anything to complain about as far as contract, it's Sam Bradford. And we can all agree to that. We can stipulate it. Doesn't change the fact that you're expecting a guy who now knows he's nothing more than a placeholder to sit here and be a good soldier for 1 year, mentor a young kid that he knows is going to replace him. And while we can all talk about being a professional, and that's what I do, that's what you do, or whatever, if you were asked to do that, you'd be upset, and that's the human nature point of it.
There's no question about it. I don't think that Bradford. I don't think he shouldn't be upset in this situation. You signed me to a 2-year deal, and now you got a guy hanging over my shoulder. And we were talking about this earlier. Look, even Favre, when he had Rodgers sitting there, by the end was starting to get a little bit perturbed that everybody kept wondering when was this guy going to get his chance. And Favre basically, they finally almost pushed him out. He wasn't done playing and still played pretty well at the end of the day. And now the Eagles are in a not that Bradford's Favre, but the fact that even Favre, who was fully entrenched as the guy there, was starting to get frustrated.
Yeah, not only fully entrenched, you're talking about a guy who was a future Hall of Famer and still had plenty left in the tank. Because remember, statistically, 2 years after that, when he arrived in Minnesota, he had his best year ever. And that's a guy who'll go in the Hall of Fame this year, 5 years, first ballot Hall of Famer. So it was even more of an issue for him. But once Aaron Rodgers turns into an all-pro level quarterback himself, all of that turns into a footnote. And that will be the same thing that happens here if Carson Wentz develops into an all-pro player. None of this will matter. Even if Sam Bradford goes to Denver or the Jets or somewhere else and actually succeeds, it'll all just fall into the background. But the Eagles have to be right about this draft choice, and this will define both Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson's legacy with the Philadelphia Eagles.
And that's where
they
this
will forever be tied with this pick.
And that is where it's so hard. You said they have to be right about this, but the percentages are not in their favor that they're going to trade up and connect on not only the number 2 pick, but the second best quarterback. They're not even getting the best quarterback by most people's account. They're getting the second guy, and we've just seen this act. One team got Andrew Luck. The other one got Robert Griffin III. This is an unprecedented move in terms of success.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, I give him a lot of credit for going up and
And
having
I
the
do too. I give him credit too, John, for having the cojones to go up and making the. I don't have. Look, I support what the Sixers have done because I like the risk. I don't have a problem with the risk. I just don't. I like the Sixers' options. I don't like the Eagles' options.
Yeah, well, I understand, and a lot of it's level of competition. But I will say, from the Eagles' standpoint, you say they're getting the second best quarterback, and that might be the school of thought to most people around the league. It's not their school of thought. They've thought from early in the process that Carson Wentz is the better of the two, and they believe he's the top quarterback in this draft. I think if they had any belief that the Rams might take Carson Wentz, I don't think they make this deal. They can say all they want.
Well, now there's some reports today out of St. Louis that they're leaning towards Wentz.
Yeah, and there will be reports going back and forth.
Sure.
But the Eagles, if you talk to the people, and even Howie intimated it, he said connect the dots, they believe that the Los Angeles Rams are going to take Jared Goff. Now, that's not to say the Rams can't make a 180 between now and the draft and change their minds, but that's certainly what the Eagles believe as we're standing here today. And I think they'd be very, very disappointed if they didn't get Carson Wentz on April 28th.
So what if they get Jared Goff? Was their risk calculated enough? I mean, if they get Jared Goff, now they say they like both of them, but if they end up with Jared Goff, is this a move that they're
happy? I don't think they're happy at all. And I think they'll obviously come out and put the best face on it as possible and say, we had both guys rated as franchise quarterbacks, and they'll spin it as well as they can. But I'm 100% certain the guy they targeted, the guy they want, and the guy they believe that will be there is Carson Wentz.
John, as we told you, people listen out there, if you're just joining us, Bleacher Report, Jason Cole is reporting Bradford is likely to request a trade out of Philadelphia. I guess the follow-up to that would be, are there financial roadblocks to make that happen?
Well, there's more financial roadblocks, to tell you the truth, from the other end of the spectrum. If you look at the teams that would want Sam Bradford, namely Denver, the New York Jets, because they're both up against it as far as the salary cap goes, and they would have to do some shuffling to fit him under his current deal. So in theory, that would make him have to rework and sign some kind of new contract with that team and essentially take a pay cut. From the Eagles, they're going to have $11 million in dead money if they trade him. It's before June 1st. All of it will go on this year's cap, so it'll be 11 after. It would be $5.5 million each year, each over the next 2 years of dead money. So they could do it, but they don't want to do it. That's not their plan. Their plan is to start Sam Bradford for the entire 2016 season.
Now, what if he demands a trade? I mean, is he tradable at this point? I mean, do you think are there teams out there that you see that would be a fit and would call the Eagles for Sam Bradford at this point?
Well, I think people look at the fact that John Elway wants competition for Mark Sanchez, and wouldn't that be ironic to have Sam Bradford and Mark Sanchez quarterbacking the Super Bowl champions? But that's one spot, the New York Jets, because they haven't been able to work something out with Ryan Fitzpatrick. But I think every single team that has a need at quarterback would rather do something else before they get to Sam Bradford. That's not to say they wouldn't want him if they can't make things happen. In the case of Denver, John Elway said the deal is dead now, right now as we speak, for Colin Kaepernick, so that would have been their top plan. The Jets still want to get Ryan Fitzpatrick at a cut-rate price, but if that doesn't get done, if he retires or walks away, they might turn to Brian Hoyer, or they might turn to the Eagles and make the phone call and say if they can get Sam Bradford, if Sam's willing to take a pay cut.
About a year ago, Howie Roseman said that it's not smart to give up a whole heck of a lot for one player in reference to Marcus Mariota. He then basically did exactly what he said was foolish to do. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I wrote about the metamorphosis of Howie Roseman a couple of days ago. Now everybody jumps on it because they all listen to the Sports Bash. He said it 13 months ago at an analytics convention in Boston, and it was when he was sort of exiled from the front office. And I wrote at the time, it's obvious that he's trying to undermine Chip Kelly, and I think it still is, because either he's completely done a 180 on his philosophy, or he didn't 100% fully agree with what he said at that particular conference. I think the only thing that's changed is the guy making the decisions, and Howie Roseman now trusts the guy making those decisions because he's looking. He looks at himself in the mirror, and it's him. That's just, he didn't trust Chip Kelly to do it, and he trusts himself to do it.
Right. So essentially, he didn't think. Did he not think Mariota was the right guy? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Well, that's so interesting because I don't think Marcus Mariota is going to be a very good NFL quarterback, and I've been pretty much on that page since day one.
Well, I think a lot of people thought that I think a lot of people thought Mariota, if he was in Philly, would have been that guy.
Exactly.
If he was someplace else, might not have been. Right.
It changes if he's in Chip Kelly's offense. I think he has a much greater chance to succeed. So in Tennessee, I don't have much confidence he's ever going to develop into a really good NFL quarterback. The bottom line. If he was in Philadelphia, if he was in Chip Kelly's system, that's what he knows. That's what he understands. That's what he's been taught to do, that one read up-tempo where you don't have to make a lot of decisions at the line of scrimmage. I think that's what he excels at. He certainly has the skill set to perform in that offense. So I think things do change if that was the ultimate fruition. And by the way, if that happened, I think Chip Kelly's still here, even though I think the Eagles would have been really, really bad last season. I think all of a sudden you say, well, it's a rookie quarterback. You have to give him another chance. You understand there's a learning curve. So I think that changes the Eagles' fortunes in many, many ways moving forward, because if Chip makes that trade, he's still here.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't know that I think they would be as bad as you're saying, because I think that the offense struggled this year because there was inconsistent play at the quarterback position on top of inconsistent play at the offensive line. But having a quarterback who was able to move a little bit may have neglected some of the problems you had on that offensive line. And, you know, it wasn't like they were getting blown out of games. They were getting, they were close games that they were just making some ugly mistakes in. And a lot of that had to do with the quarterback being rushed, throwing interceptions. So I don't know that they'd be as bad as you do if Mariota was here last year.
I think the problems changed. I think you're right. Some of those aren't the same issues, but then you have new issues with a rookie quarterback. It's not necessarily even a criticism of Mariota. It's just the reality that rookie players at that particular position in this league tend to make a lot of mistakes, no matter how talented they are. So that's part of it. And then the second part of it is, with that bad offensive line, yeah, he might have masked some of the deficiencies in the running game by creating space and things like that, but he also would have been banged up. He was banged up in Tennessee, and he would have gotten hit a lot behind that offensive line, and I don't think he would have stood up for 16 games. So I think some of the problems, as you mentioned, would have gone away, but additional ones would have cropped up. And I think bottom line, that team wasn't very talented, and they weren't going to be very successful with a rookie quarterback, no matter who that rookie quarterback was.
Who starts at quarterback against the Browns?
Sam Bradford. I think the Eagles will be able to calm this situation down and talk him into it and sort of spin it like, hey, you know what, Sam, if you go out and excel and play at a Pro Bowl level, we're not going to bench you. So you will have the opportunity you think you were going to have. Now, I don't believe that for 1 second, but that's what they'll try to sell to Sam Bradford. And I think it'll be enough to the fact that where he's going to play this season. But I think that'll be it. He's a one-yarder, and I think from this point forward, then it will become Carson Wentz's team with Chase Daniel as the backup.
John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN.com, at JF McMullen. You know, what I always find interesting about this process is, you know, at this time last year, there was two guys, and then you're looking ahead like, well, if you don't get your quarterback this year, next year you've got Connor Cook and you've got Paxton Lynch. Said you got Jared Goff and you've got Carson Wentz. These guys just kind of come from nowhere, and you act like you have to get one of these guys now, otherwise you've missed the boat. And I that's why I find it's just these guys aren't Andrew Luck. These guys aren't Peyton Manning.
I'll tell you, I'll tweet it again. I agree with you there. They're certainly not that level of prospect. I would even say they're not a Jameis Winston level of prospect. Bob McGinn, who covers the Green Bay Packers for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, he does a great job in the draft every year. He talked to the National Scouting Combine people. At this time last year, Carson Wentz, by NFL scouts, was rated as a priority free agent. He wasn't even rated as a draftable committee. And that's how things can change over one season, and he performed well on the field. And I said, you know, Mike, if you look at every drill at the Scouting Combine, he was more athletic, he was better at it than Jared Goff, and he played in a pro-style system. Now, obviously, the level of competition is bad, but that helps you when it projects to the next level because you're asked to do some of the same things you'll do in the NFL as far as progressing from receiver A to B to C to D. And I think that's why the Eagles like him. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I see the article that you're talking about. So you're saying in that article that people were saying that Carson Wentz was basically would be an undrafted rookie free agent from where he was last year.
Yeah, at this time last year, as we got done with the 2015 draft and we started looking forward, that's how things drastically changed. He was rated by the National Scouting Combine as a priority free agent, and he slowly progressed. He had a tremendous season on the field. He had a tremendous Senior Bowl week. He had a great combine, great interviews. Everyone speaks tremendously highly of his character off the field, his football intelligence. And it also speaks, the second part of that is, no matter what they say, these scouts don't pay a lot of attention to underclassmen. Until they dive into it, until they're done with one draft and dive into the next draft, they don't spend a lot of time on those guys. So you can see, the drastic shifts.
John, I want to get your thoughts on a couple of national stories as well. What happened with Josh Norman, and what is his future now?
Well, I think he wanted $16 million a year, and he obviously wanted a long-term deal. And Carolina kind of understands what they do, and that's predominantly a cover 2 and a cover 3 defense. So they play a lot of zone. And generally when you're talking about that type of money for a corner, it's Darrelle Revis money, it's Patrick Peterson money, and that's reserved for the best press coverage cornerbacks in the game. That's really not Josh Norman's strength. And with their off-season program scheduled to start, Dave Gettleman just said, you know what, I don't want the headache similar to what Chip Kelly did with Evan Mathis last year before minicamp. He said, I'd rather have the chemistry in my locker room. He took the franchise tag on him. Now it'll be the highest bidder. And I say buyer beware, because if you expect this guy to come in, it's going to be similar to Byron Maxwell. If you're going to pay him $16 million and say, go play press coverage, he's not going to succeed for you.
Interesting. It's funny because he thinks that he's a more valuable guy than maybe he is, but this is a team, dude. How bad does this hurt the Panthers? Does he fit in with the Panthers with what they do?
Yeah, he fits in tremendously with the Panthers, and I think that's part of the problem. That's part of the I don't agree, but you have to make these decisions. And they were willing. I mean, they had the franchise tag on there, which is just under $14 million. So they were willing to go that high for at least a 1-year period. But it's one of those things where you can see both sides end up regretting it, because obviously wherever Josh Norman's going to go, whether it's San Francisco, Chicago, he's not going to have Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis, K'Wan Short. in front of them in that tremendous front seven Carolina had. And from the Panthers' perspective, who are they going to throw out there? Brandon Boykin is not going to be nearly the impact player that Josh Norman was. So I think both sides are going to regret this at some point.
John McMullen has more at 97.3ESPN.com on Sam Bradford and how he could be a little wrench in the wheel of the Eagles' plans. And, of course, at JF McMullen, today's pigskin.com for all his National Football League coverage. John, we will speak again tomorrow.
Hey, thank you, Mike.